Welcome to Business Brains and the Bottom Line Podcast. My name is Paul Delegro, your host, and my guest today is Mark Bowden. Mark is a human behavior and body language expert. He's the owner of a company called GesturePlane. He's been on the Dr. Phil show. He's been on TED Talk. He has a show called The Behavior Panel and trained it to G7 leaders and Fortune 500 CEOs all over the world. So just a brief snippet of your bio, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Paul, thanks so much for having me. Great pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So, Mark, I got to admit, body language and human behavior is always something I've had an interest in. I think I was telling some folks earlier today that I had taken a course in body language in high school. Now, obviously, that was many moons ago, but I think that body language is so key to everything we do in life, right? From business environments to social environments. And I'm always fascinated by it. So, but I'll start, obviously, this is what you do every day. So how did you get into being a, body language expert and human behavior expert?
Yeah. So look, though maybe some of the science and understanding has changed about body language since, you first investigated it.
Yep.
Just like when I first investigated it, some things haven't changed, which is we are still pretty much the same we're still very much the same human beings, pretty much 2 arms, 2 legs and a head in roughly the same position as each other. And it's always been. So my guess is I got fascinated just like you and just like most human beings get fascinated in how do we as human beings really relate with each other? We've got a part of our brain, the social mammalian brain, which its only function is to try and work out how we're related to each other.
Okay.
For our benefit. We want to know, look, Paul, are you going to help me? Are you going to be a risk to me? Or are you going to be a benefit to me? And one of the ways we do that is to judge each other via our behaviors. We have an instinctual part of our brain, which is constantly judging the environment, including all the human beings, and getting involved in that. So I think just like you, I was obsessed with, how can I better influence and persuade the people around me? I actually studied fine art, so I was very interested in actually how images change people's minds, how images influence and persuade. And part of that became the human body, the moving human body. I got into biology as well and how the body actually functions at a biological level. Studied psychology as well, then started working within entertainment, film, TV, fine art as well, then in politics, then in business. And here I am, landed here at this point. So an interesting trajectory, maybe.
Yeah, because I gotta believe, there's not many folks like you around, I don't think. There's a few, but there's not many body language experts. And some of the interesting things that I saw, like, I think I saw one of your shows where you were critiquing some of the celebrities out there and some of the people that are on TV giving interviews and critiquing, are they telling the truth or not? I think that's a big aspect of this, right? When you're in meetings and you're talking to people and judging them, okay, they're coming clean with me or they not? Yeah.
It's an obsession with people, and quite rightly so. Look, we want to make sure that we're not being duped in some way. We want to make sure that that person who we do trust, should we really trust them? Should we trust them over time? So not only do some of us want to use our natural intuition around that, but we want to be even more certain. We want to use our critical thinking skills around that. And that's where really expertise comes in, because I don't have a better intuition than you do, Paul. We're both alive right now, which means our intuition is actually pretty good. Good to the extent that it's saved our lives on a number of occasions. Okay. But what I want to do is be able to think cognitively a little better, faster, in the right ways, so that I can literally say to somebody, hey, I've really looked at this, and I think you can be certain that this person is not telling you the truth, or this person is telling you the truth. Not that I can absolutely guarantee it, but sometimes I will go, look, I totally guarantee this for you. Sometimes but I'm not there outgoing, advertising myself as always 100% guarantee. I will tell you if there's somebody, being deceitful or being honest with you. But I can get closer to the truth than most other people would get,
Well, there's some tips and tells that people automatically do when they're telling the truth versus not telling the truth, correct? I mean, I think I saw one of your interviews when the head leans to the right and down, that means something. And so talk a little bit about some of the things that you look for when you're teaching people what not to do and what to do.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of, how might you look for deceit? What you're actually looking for is stress. Because here's what we know. When people have to make up a story that is not accurate, the brain gets quite stressed.
Okay.
And that shows up in the body because you lose control of the body because, the brain is now dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. There's only so many neurons. It's a zero-sum game for the brain. And so it has to lose control of something in order to have control of something else. That's the reason why, by the way, that sometimes when people are making a decision, they cross their arms because they want as much brain power as possible in order to make this decision. And they don't want their limbs moving around, using up cognitive load, essentially.
Yeah. So and you do that subconsciously, right? I mean, without
you might do that subconsciously. You might think to yourself, let me really think about this one. And you do this. However, what is the person watching you reading? What have they read on the internet about crossing arms? Well, they've probably read that it's a barrier gesture and it means somebody isn't interested or they're closed off to something. So look, here's what we know is that under stress, certain signals come out. Okay. So, but I don't know how much under stress you were in the first place in your life in general. I don't know what your body does in general. So first of all, I've got to baseline you. I've got to get a sense of how are you when you're comfortable? What are the signals that you give me when you're comfortable? Then I can work out, well, I'm getting some new signals here. Are they some of the signals of stress? And I don't want one. I want what we call a cluster. I want to see a cluster of stress signals, essentially. And those could be, things like adapters, which is when you kind of shift around in the place that you are. Manipulators, which is where you start, altering stuff around you and adapting that way. Pacifying gestures, which is where you start to adapt, but you do it repetitively. And that means you're probably trying to calm yourself down, produce oxytocin. So we'll often see the flats of hands against the body, rubbing, which makes you feel better. It takes away the stress. It could be eye accessing cues where the eyes are going. But again, I need to baseline you. Where do your eyes go when you're telling me something that is clearly truthful?
Yeah.
Where do they go when you might be making something up? So I want to get a whole bunch of clusters together against your baseline in order to get a sense of, are you under stress at this particular moment? And then I want to go back and test it as well. So probably go back over the information, back over the story and get a sense of, do you do it again every time you talk about that area? Hope that makes sense to you, Paul.
It does. And so, I'm trying to, as you're saying this, I'm trying to think to my professional life. I've been in sales for about 35, 40 years. And I think, like you said earlier, we do have instincts. You can kind of read a room, read a person. And I think that stuff comes in handy when you're giving presentations, trying to see if they're buying into what you're saying and if there's any, to your term, stress in what you're saying.
Right. So look, most of us will be using our instincts around that. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But what I'd like people to think about doing with their instincts, and my guess is you've always done this, Paul, okay? So, but what I'd like you to do with your instincts is when you get that feeling of, hang on, I've just been talking about this and I'm getting a feeling that they don't like it, okay? Right. I don't know, maybe you've hit them with price or something like that, and you go, okay, this isn't going down well. Well, that's either true or false or something in between. Okay.
Yep.
And your instinct will always default to negatives, not positives. Your instinct
Okay.
is always going to be negatively biased. My guess is that might be slightly different for you, Paul, and many of the people watching here, because as a salesperson, you got to be a little bit biased optimistic, or you'd give up really, really early on, wouldn't you?
But I was going to say, being in sales is not for the faint of heart. I will tell you that.
Totally. Your level of idea of risk and personal risk and social risk will be a lot lower than most people's, because it's like, I got to keep going with this. You've got skill, I understand that, but it's also kind of a war of attrition and a war of numbers.
Yeah.
And just being interminable. Like, you will not stop. You got to keep, in the kindest way, you have to keep going to change people's minds. But all the same, you're getting this instinct going, hang on, this is not going right. Here's what I want you to do with that.
Okay.
I want you to use that as a trigger to ask more questions of them. What we might call a trigger to interrogate, to interview. So I might be doing my pitch. I might have laid down price, and I'm getting a bad feeling about this. So I go, look, let me just stop there. What are you feeling? What are you thinking at the moment? What's going through your mind? Okay. So I asked them a very direct question of feeling, of thinking, of what's running through your mind right now. And then I stop talking and I leave a space and I let them fill the gap with information. Sure. Now, they may tell me the truth, or they may lie to me, or anything in between, and I've got to start judging that. But now I'm trying to gather information because I've seen a change in baseline. I've seen discomfort. Okay. So now I want to interview that, get information around that. Again, hope that makes sense to you, Paul. And I'd love your feedback on this. Is like,
no, it really does. I mean,
what you've always done.
Every sales training class I've ever taken it talks about asking open-ended questions, right? Versus, is that good? Is that, you don't want that, right? Is it, to your point, how are you feeling? Get them to open up to you. Now, there is different dynamics, as you know, Mark. Now, if you're one-on-one, a couple of people in a room, I think people have a natural tendency to open up. But if you're in a conference room with 20 people, a little bit tougher, right? People are a little bit more reserved and don't want to stick their neck out and say things. So it's a lot of dynamics, but I agree with you on that. It's something that, we've all been trained to do over the years, and some of us are better than others, I guess.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do in that dynamic, Paul, because you're right. The more people in a room, the more social risk going on, the more political risk going on. So people might close down a little bit more. Okay. But some of them won't. Some of them will be a little bit more forward. And so those are the people I'm looking out for. Now, think about that metaphor. Some people are a little bit more forward. When we think about that idea, we go, oh, they're more likely to say stuff. They're more likely to open their mouths and tell you what they're thinking. Well, yeah, and they're more likely to be forward, to be physically forward as well than hanging back. Yeah. So literally, if you think about all the ideas you have, the metaphors you have for how communicative somebody is, they actually come from the physical positions that you'll see people in. That person was really hanging back. Oh, they were really forward about their views. So I want you to look out for the people who are more forward. Okay. And when you want to know, hey, so I'm just curious, how are you thinking about what I've been saying so far? Yeah. Point to the person who's more forward. Yeah. Call them out by name, because chances are they're more likely to give you information. And if they give you information, and here's what you do, you show accepting body language. So if they're forward with it and they go, yeah, it's just too expensive. It just doesn't, have the price that equates to the value that we were expecting. Have open body language when you're hearing that potentially bad news.
Sure. Okay.
Don't respond to the bad news with closed, negative body language. Respond with open body language. Okay.
And what are some examples of open body language, just for the folks out there?
Okay. So think about this. It's a cold day here in Toronto. I'm talking to you from Toronto, Canada right now. It's a cold day. The snow outside. But, if I came from the outside, -4 out there or something like that, and I came inside and the fire was going downstairs, okay, I would instantly I'd take off my coat, I'd open out my body, and I'd start warming the front of my hands, in front
Yep.
of that fire. And you'd see somebody talking like this, okay? Now, if I met you, and that's open body language, because I'm open to the warmth, the supply that the positive energy that the world is giving me, just like that fire is positive energy, literally, it's energy moving at a wavelength that produces heat for my body. Okay.
There you go.
And I'm absorbing that heat. Okay. Now, if I was outside having a conversation with you, okay, you might well see closed body language. Why? I'm just trying to keep warm. I'm just trying to conserve the energy that I already have. The environment is a negative one for me. So it's very easy for me to do closed body language. I just imagine that I'm cold. Okay, cold environment. It's very easy to do open body language. I just imagine that I'm in front of a big roaring fire. Okay. So the person feeds back to me, the price is not right for us. All the time I'm hearing this, I'm showing open body language, because here's what's going to happen. If others see how well I accept negatives, okay, they will open up more. Okay. They'll give me more information. And you know as well as I do, Paul, as everybody knows out there right now, is that the more you open up to all information, the smarter you get. Okay. Some of that information may be really negative. You might go, okay, that's really bad news, but you want to hear it. You want to hear the bad news around this, because now you can work with it. If you don't know what it is, you can't work with it. So thoughts on that, Paul?
No, I agree. I always espouse to the Vito Corleone theory in The Godfather, when Tom Higgins is in California and Johnny Fontaine wasn't going to get the part in the movie, and he said, Don Corleone insists on hearing bad news first.
Right.
Absolutely. So I always call it, I've always, in different terms here, right? I've always called it flushing out the negatives. Anyone can give a presentation and go, yes. But unless you find out if they have any reservations, and a lot of times they do, but people are afraid to speak up. So I always say, hey, are there any reservations? And if I don't get an answer, I try to pinpoint, is it the solution? Is it price? Is there any objections to these 3 or 4 areas? That way, again, a term I've kind of coined myself is flushing out the negatives. I don't know what in your world, what you term that, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, controlling the negatives, I would say, because number one, I want them so I can take control of them. If they're in somebody's head, I can't manipulate the negatives. I can't turn them around if I haven't got a hold of them. So I want them out. If I were in your position, I would be saying things like, okay, so you've heard what I have to say. You have all the information here. What's the deal breaker for you?
Yes. Why can't we go forward today?
Right. Absolutely. What is the thing? Now I might start with what's the best thing you've heard from this presentation? What's the best thing you've seen from the product, from the service? So I'm using a hierarchical question to go, there are many good things. I want the best. So I'm getting you in a good mood.
Yep.
First of all,
getting them to nod their head, right?
Yeah. And somebody will break. Somebody will be forward enough that they'll tell me that one, and I'll nod and I'll agree. And I might even say, what else? And somebody else will join in. So now they're selling themselves. Okay. Right. But I will, because there will be somebody there going, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna integrate with our system. So, they've got somebody's got a barrier somewhere in their mind. And so I might go, okay, that's all well and good. But I know there's always a problem somewhere. So what feels like the deal breaker already for you? So remember, I've used there what feels like. Not that it is, but it just feels like that. And when I use that, I can get to the issue there and usually undo it. But again, all the time, I'm keeping open, warm body language. All the time, this negative idea might be coming at me, and I'm treating it like a warm fire. And that means people will give me the information that I can then, work with it, manipulate it in some way.
Yeah. No, you got me thinking about things. Now, another piece of advice I always give people that are young people, then they're interviewing for a job. I always say to them, you've got to ask if there's any reason why they wouldn't hire you today if they could. Again, to your point is, I call it flushing out the negative, because if they have any reservations when you leave that room, you're never getting the job, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to deal with them there and then.
Right.
And of course, they'll lie to you, so they'll lie to you and go, okay, so we'll let you know. You'll go, so when you're making your decision, we're going to make our decision Wednesday and we'll let people know. It's like, and you never hear from them.
Yeah.
So ultimately, they barefaced lied to you. Okay. Yeah. You need to deal with it there and then. So I love that question. Is there any reason? I got a question for you. I mean, because they'll go, any questions?
Yep.
You go, yeah, actually, I do have one. Is there any reason why you wouldn't hire me today? It's like, whoa, that's a good question.
Yeah. It's an uncomfortable question. I've told people to ask this, and they never feel comfortable asking it. But I said, here's the alternative. If you don't ask it and they have reservations about you, to your point, you'll never get a call back.
Right.
If they may have concerns about your educational level or your experience level, and you can address it right then and there and try to turn that point around, right?
Totally. I love that. Listen, I hope some people who are having job interviews, especially young people, watch this today, because that's real gold. You're right. You got to be brave, because we fear the answer says, there are so many reasons. I can't even go into how many reasons why I wouldn't hire you. I mean, you didn't come across well. You're uneducated. You can't do the job. I'm confused as to why you ended up in the room in the first place. I'm going to go and talk to HR and work out what their resume system is here, because this has been a disaster. That's what we fear. We default to negatives. So we catastrophize because there's so much we don't know. But the moment we open up our body, and we go, look, I do have one question for you, which is there any reason why you wouldn't hire me today? Yeah. And we're calm and assertive and use that body language. We actually create a place for them where they're going to feel more comfortable. It's still uncomfortable, yes,
sure, but
more comfortable in going, then maybe they're going to go, hey, we got more people to see. Yeah. And you could go, so what are you thinking you might be looking for that you might not have seen in me already? Yeah. It's like, now you can start to dissemble these barriers. They might be going, well, we're looking for somebody with more experience. I totally understand that. More experience in exactly what?
Right.
So now, Paul, we're doing exactly the same kind of sales that anybody like you or anybody out there would be wanting to do. You're now selling yourself, moving past the barriers.
Yeah. It's funny. I've always said a lot of salespeople are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid to hear the answer. Right. And I remember early on in my career, I lost a deal by that. I was probably in my 20s and I lost a very large deal. I never asked the tough questions. I never asked if they had any reservations. I just kept saying, how's everything going? Oh, everything's going great. And I walk away. Right. And then I lost the deal, and they did have reservations about our company and our solution and our offering. But I never asked the question. I learned at a very young age, don't be afraid to ask the tough questions, because the alternative's a lot worse.
Paul, let me ask you a question. What is your best tough question? Like, what is your best, even better than, is there any reason why you wouldn't buy today? Or, that kind of closing question. Sure. What is an even better tough question?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always we're in technology sales. So it's a very complex sale, and you got to get all the stakeholders to buy into your solution, and to get them to open up about what the reservations they have about your solution is always the toughest, because no one wants to offend anybody.
Right.
right? Everyone's afraid to offend. And, at this point in my life, there's not much you can say to me that hasn't been said before. So I'm pretty thick skinned. Plus I'm Italian too, Mark. So we tend to be a pretty thick skinned crew anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I would say the toughest questions to ask are getting people to give you the negative answers. Like, are you going to go with our company, our solution? Do you like what we're offering? And getting people to open up, in my opinion, is always the toughest part.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, that opening up piece, what I'd like people to think about doing non-verbally is when you ask those tough questions, what your body is going to want to do is close down and protect itself.
Yep.
So it's going to want to go, look, is there any reason that you can think of that you wouldn't want to, go with our company today? Now, what I want you to do is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I want you to do warm body language and say, look, is there any reason today that you can feel that you wouldn't want to go with our company? Okay. And that's going to create the environment where they're going to feel more buoyant, more positive about you. Yeah. But so you're going to influence and persuade them towards the positive, but also you're going to create that environment where they feel freer, less risk to telling you the truth, because that's what you want out of people.
Yeah.
You want the truth, because the truth you can start to work with. Lies, it's like you go away, like they go, you do this, is there any reason? And they go, yeah, well, I think the price could be better. And they were lying to you.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't about the price. They were just sending you off to do some work, hoping that you'll never come back with a better price, because they don't want to offend. And of course, you might own the technology. It might be like, you might be, one of those salespeople where you've come from the technology side. And it's like, this is kind of my baby. I'm expert around this. I sell this as well, but I don't set the price on it. Yeah. So it's like, and they know that. So they're like, he's not really wedded, she's not really wedded to price, wedded to the technology. So they're like, well, we love the technology, but I think it's just priced a bit high. And you go, oh yeah, well, I can go back and I can speak to the business and kind of try and work that out. Yep. Actually, there was something up with the technology, but they never said it because they felt, they felt like it would offend you. It would hurt you.
Yeah, and that's hard. Flushing that out is always difficult, because I think human nature, there are some people out there, we've all met them, that love offending people, but I would say the lion's share want to be respectful and nice and don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Right. Well, of course they don't, because look, we all exist in communities. People will offend you if they want to do transactions with you. They're just like, well, we're going to buy this or not buy this once, and then we'll move on to the next vendor, yep. And we'll crush price. One mentor of mine said very early on, he said, Mark, it's a long life and a very short street, which what he meant by that is you're going to be around in business a long time, and the amount of people to work with is actually quite small. So you better don't offend, build relationships with people. And as well as I do, those are the kind of clients and customers that you want, because they keep coming back. It's not a transaction.
Yeah. Building that trusting relationship. This is part of kind of my motto. It's always been that is, building that trusting relationship where they feel they can come to you with anything. And if it does hit the fan, which it's going to hit the fan, they know that you're going to be there to belly up to the table and make it right.
Right. Look, that's super important. Has anybody ever bought any technology where it hasn't been tough going once they've gone to install it, get it integrated?
There's always issues.
Buying is the easy bit.
Yes, agreed.
like the installation, getting the organization to join in with it. Like, now the real world begins. Okay. And here's what they want to know is, when things are negative, how are you? How do you perform in this? When they hit you with like, this is not quite working as we hoped, or with like, HR is having a real problem, using this technology or whatever it is. Like, they don't want to see somebody who responds like this. Yeah. They want to see somebody who responds, okay, I totally get it. Let me give you some best practice. Let me show you what other organizations have done. Let me get in there with you. Let's get this working. They want somebody who's a leader and is buoyant and optimistic. And so if you're able to ask those tough questions and go, look, this is who you get when there's something tough going on. Yeah.
Right.
They start to go, well, if he can respond to, we don't like this about it, and respond so buoyantly and optimistically, this bodes well for the rest of the relationship, because we know how hard this is getting technology involved.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, good advice. This has been great. So I'm glad we tied this to sales, because we have a lot of sales folks that watch this show. Yeah. So this has been great. I hope the folks out there pull a few pearls out of your discussion. But I want to shift a little bit. So I actually watched a couple of your shows, and I think you critique some celebrity interviews. So the most recent one is the Alec Baldwin one.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to talk about that one, really, just kind of a fun conversation. So we all know what happened. And I am not a big fan of Alec Baldwin personally or professionally, but I do feel bad for the guy. I will say this. I mean, anyone that kills someone, I don't care who you are, if you're the biggest jerk on the earth.
Yeah, it's not going to feel good.
It's not going to feel good. So you saw that interview with Stephanopoulos, I believe.
Yes.
What did you think of that one?
Yeah, well, what interests me most about it is it's Alec Baldwin unscripted. That's the kind of the frame of it.
But that's not true, though.
No, it's not true.
Yeah.
Because there we are with the interviewer who has a clipboard, who has set questions. So what they've done is to go, the public are worried that this will be a prepared statement. Okay. And the public don't want that. They want to hear the truth from the person. So we're going to call it unscripted, but clearly it's prepared. The questions are prepared.
And he is an actor, by the way.
And he's an actor, okay,
yeah.
and though you may like his films or not like his films, he's not bad. He's not the greatest on the planet, but he's more than good enough.
Yeah,
okay,
I'd agree.
He's more than good enough, okay, and so what interests me is this setup from the start, which is you're going to see something which is very, very real and very, very unscripted. And yet everything around it tells me that's probably not true. This is prepared. So look, is he preparing himself for the best opportunity for court cases that will undoubtedly come, and liabilities that he has, and, keeping his career going? Is this about that? I imagine so.
Yeah,
and so
no doubt.
Can we look at his performance in that and go, is this really, the true Alec Baldwin or the PR Alec Baldwin? Well, it's most likely the PR Alec Baldwin that's there. Yeah, so that's my biggest takeaway from it. And that's still nonverbal. What you do is you look at the structure of the communication, not what's said, but you go, well, what's it said inside of? What are other people doing? So I look at Stephanopoulos, and he's there with a clipboard.
Yeah.
And I go, well, that's an indicator. It's not like Baldwin's there with a script. Okay, but somebody else is.
Yeah. Oh, he was given the question. So there's no question. Stephanopoulos gave him the questions ahead of time. I mean, they had to have.
Totally. Now, here's the thing: who approached who?
Yeah.
Again, so it's like who made in nonverbal. We have the thing of, well, who offers their hand first in the handshake? Well, in this one, who approached who in this? Which party was first going, I think I'd like to do an interview? Or did the other side go, would you do an interview? I think it was probably Baldwin and his team who went, I would do an interview on this. Day after, by the way, it's interesting that the authorities said, you got to stop that. Stop. Don't do that anymore. Don't do that anymore. Yeah.
He's definitely
down. Essentially,
he's definitely trying to position himself to look in a positive light, because the lawsuits are coming, even probably, some legal ramifications as well, I would think. I'm not an expert at this, but.
Totally. So look, a more truthful title would have been Alec Baldwin, showing myself in the most positive light.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been a more truthful title.
Oh, okay. Right. I get it. I get what's trying to happen here.
Oh, well, this was a lot of fun, Mark. I really enjoyed it. Again, this is a subject matter that I kind of always have enjoyed, looking at body language, looking at interviews. And so this has been a lot of fun. I hope that the folks out there got something out of this, because I think we can all learn both professionally and personally how to, use our body language to better our lives, right? To understand people better.
All it's about is can I understand can we understand each other better? Can we get along better?
Yeah.
There's all the people you said, there's only a handful of people in body language really who are worth paying attention to. All of them are all about how to get along better with each other.
Yeah.
That's it. And as well as I do in sales, that's the key. The better along you're getting with people, the more likely you are to get the results for them and get the results for yourself.
No doubt about it. That old cliche, people buy from people. I mean, I think people want to buy from people they trust and feel comfortable with. And if you can get to that point, I think you'll do well. So,
yeah.
Well, great. Mark, thanks for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Maybe we'll have you on again, talk about some different actors and all that. Would love to have you back.
Anytime. Happy to come back anytime, Paul.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for Business Brains and the Bottom Line. Until next time, signing off, Paul Delegra.